Hello and welcome to the seventh and final round of day one at the season 3 Invitational for the Eternal Tournament Series. I am Truedawn, joined as always by LocoPojo.
Welcome, welcome. Our final matchup of the day is Rakano Plate versus Icaria Blue. Marius versus Unearthly. Unearthly's been giving a very strong showing with this Rakano Plate deck, so I'm excited to see how it fares against the slower Icaria Blue deck and more defensive strategies.
Yeah, Marius has some clunkers in this matchup. He has things like Rain of Frogs, Rise to the Challenge is hard to get off, Staff of Stories. So, again, Unearthly has been preying upon people playing decks like this, taking turns off to cast Find the Way, taking turns to cast Rise Challenge, Subvert. All these cards that don't do anything, don't impact the board. Decks like Rakano Plate just heavily punish those. Also, I'm pretty sure that aReNGee is responsible for a large part of his success.
Yeah, we've seen matchups similar to this before. We have the 3 Auric Runehammers and the 2 Swords of Icaria. You have those double Icaria Deliberators. Those are the cards that are really threatening against the overall Rakano strategy. Rain of Frogs tends to not be that great in the opener, but if he can get a Deep Forge Plate out of it, that does disable a large portion of Unearthly's late-game damage and allows cards like Icaria to persist and just deal enough value damage to really succeed in the late game.
Yeah, definitely. But you do also run into the awkwardness sometimes where you can give them a frog and then the frog can put on some pants and then you run into problems. So, like, I've had that before. Frog lethal is the best kind of lethal.
I mean, as it was destined, it is entirely true that sometimes the frog kills you. So yeah, we have like a really fun deck from Unearthly. Like Unearthly is well known for playing Rakano at all of the tournaments. So you can expect any list from him to be extremely well tuned and pretty solid against most of the matchups in a tournament setting. Meanwhile, this Icaria Blue deck, always a steadfast control archetype. You have all of the harsh rules. You have lots of relic weapons and other fun things. So you have lots of ways to just deal with that early aggression and really pressure these units until Icaria comes down. I think that it's a pretty solid matchup and it should be pretty interesting to see.
Yep, and we will start game one here. Unearthly starts off with turn 1 Oniron in the play. It's just how you draw it up. That's what you want to see. Marius does have a torch, but his mana is pretty awkward, so he's not going to be able to torch until turn 2.
Entirely premium Rakano set, extremely fancy cards all over the place. Really appreciating that.
Yes, definitely. All the premium cards look great. I'd still like to put in a formal request to Direwolf to have a premium border as well, but is probably asking too much. Me being greedy. They already look great.
Well, you know, it might happen. Anyways, we've got the Valkyrie Enforcers and a lot of damage being pressured very early here. Unearthly knows that he doesn't want to get to the point where Icaria is coming down on 7. He's going to try and push across as much damage as possible before Marius can do anything.
Marius played the wrong dual land and can now not Valkyrie this turn, which is pretty awkward because it would be able to block or trade. Now he's just going to get run over.
That's pretty rough. Missing a step like that is going to be pretty difficult. Amongst other things, he really wanted to play that Valkyrie this turn so that he could silence one of the flyers. Being able to silence one of the flyers would allow him to at least chump block against the 3/3 and then have the Auric Runehammer out for other problems. But yeah, at this point, he's going to take 8 damage. I think he might just be dead.
Certainly he's not like just dead. It depends whether or not Unearthly how much he wants to play around Harsh Rule, and he does plays pretty conservatively around it. If it were me, I probably would have run out one of those creatures, but I'm a little bit more aggressive than most. So
second Auric Runehammer does put Unearthly in a situation where Harsh Rule could potentially be a threat.
Oh, there is the lethal Gemblade. Monuments doing work.
Yeah, always good to have that 5-drop monument do the right thing. It's got the power.
And there we see the game plan of Unearthly. Just like, you're going to mess around, like rising to the challenge and like playing dual lands that come into play depleted and all this nonsense. And I'm just going to kill you. That's what's going to happen. And we saw that manifest that game.
Yep, and we can already see the dirtily cards coming out of the Icaria Blue deck in favor of Ruins and some more aggressive, low-cost stuff. I think that overall that's going to work out pretty well in terms of setting up Icaria Blue, but you really don't want to lose that first game. That's actually one of the things about the aggro decks, is that if they can get a good setup on the first game, the sideboards tend to be a little stronger in the favor of the control decks. But because there's that element of randomness, and because the control deck now has to win 2 games to claw back, being able to take that first game where there is no sideboard is really crucial to getting that aggro deck off the ground.
Yeah, it's hard to win. It's harder to win in the sideboard games, and giving yourself a game to lose helps quite a bit. And we will see, for as far as sideboard goes for Unearthly, we will probably see the Silvering Familiar. Soulfire Drakes are also pretty good. I don't know if you take out Plate. Usually when you bring in Drake, you take out Plate, because you don't want Plate in matchups where they are very removal heavy, because it's unlikely to stick at a creature, even though you do things like Silvering Familiar. So be interested to see his sideboard plan. We do see on the side of your screen the end result of his sideboard, and you do see the Soulfire Drakes in there, the Ruins. Yeah, looks like they have a pretty solid game plan set up for this, up to 4 Protect as well.
Yeah, he seems to be setting up a very, very slow setup. 3 Soulfire Drakes and 3 Plates, along with 3 Hammers of Might. Shogun's Scepter, there's far too many units, or far too many weapons here to be worried about Ruins or anything like that. You just want to basically keep that sideboard in and just not have to worry too much about it. I think that Shogun's Scepter in particular just provides a really good answer to sort of the Ruin archetype, where if you are pulling Ruins in the sideboard, the Shogun Scepter is still creating value in terms of the Oni Ronins and the War Cries.
Yeah, Shogun's Scepter and Hammermight are the 2 best equipment, because they both gain immediate value for playing them. If you were to play a removal spell on a creature that already got equipped, they still got a War Cry, and in the case of Scepter, get the Oni Ronin. So yeah, I really love how Unearthly's deck is set up to hedge against various things. It's a lot of 3-ofs, but it's a lot of redundant things that do similar stuff. So he's not really giving up much. It's just a really well built deck.
Yeah, you always want to have like a couple of backup plans for these aggro archetypes, because you're never going to draw the same thing as much as you want, and it's important to have that sort of variance. It also makes for really interesting games, so it's always delightful to see Unearthly running this deck.
Yep, and we see Marius not pull the trigger on the Harsh, or on the Lightning Storm. He doesn't want to just use it on that. We will likely see it here. It removes the Aegis from the Silver Familiar and kills the Oni Ronin. That seems like a pretty reasonable Lightning Storm. But
yeah,
now Unearthly has 2 protects for the Silver Familiar.
Yeah, this double protect is really important. Unearthly has to decide if he wants to play Hammer of Might on Silverwing. I feel like it's not a bad decision, but on the other hand, with double protect, there's always the chance that he just kind of wants to hold on to that Silverwing Familiar.
Yeah, I think that this is fine. It's because Hammer of Might gains you value. It's not the biggest blow in the world to draw removal, and Marius does have the Vanquish. You still have the Soulfire Drake. So kept the 7/7 Rakano Outlaw now that you get to play with Protect backup.
Yeah,
so
getting that Warcry top deck is really the important thing there, which is why it's definitely beneficial to go ahead and play out and continue to remain aggressive. You have that 7/7 attacker. Obviously, weapons can't deal with this very well. You have to draw Vanquish or Harsh Roll, and with double Protect, I think Unearthly is just going to take this game 2-0.
Yeah, I think he's just going to... Because Marius needs 3 ways to kill this, and the current 2 ways he has both cost 5 mana, and he's at 10. So, yeah, and actually, he's going to tap out here, and... Well, he has 1 mana open, so if Unearthly draws a power, he can play Soulfire Drake, because he'll protect backup, but it's a little risky to go for lethal with Soulfire Drake if he doesn't have the protect backup in the face of potential torch mana.
Yeah, I feel like the Soulfire Drake is probably the correct way to go about things, but that also pretty clear lethal. Oh, Ruin, not quite lethal. Yep. And unfortunately now the 7/7 is available to be killed, but with Soulfire Drake with a Protect on top, I think that Unearthly still has a way to close out the game.
Although he needs the mana for the Protect, he can't play Soulfire Drake into this torch unless he draws mana. And we'll probably just see the Outlaw. I don't think that you have to... Like, Unearthly's debating, should you just go for lethal? I think you just play the Outlaw. It's so safe. Like, not a lot punishes you for it.
Yeah, Soulfire Drake is pretty safe, too, just because if there is a torch, you still get the flying charge, and that's so beneficial for you as the game continues to progress. Like,
it's lethal. Yes, it is true. Although, like, now, Icaria is going to come down. Unearthly's now on the back foot. Like, this game went from... like very far in hand, and you saw Unearthly get a little bit aggressive, not leave up Protect on some turns, and he could still certainly win this game, but it's not a lock anymore.
Yeah, Hammer of Might helps him out quite a bit. But if there's like an Auric Runehammer, if there's any sort of answer that doesn't respond to protect, I think he's maybe in a bit of trouble.
Well,
He's got Ruin.
he's
For
got
the
Ruin for the
weapons.
Sword of Ikaria, and he has Protect for the Torch, so he's actually covered from both. So the way things currently stand, he will get to have this Outlaw on tap and be able to crack back with the Hammer of Might and force the Ikaria to chump block. But if Marius draws a big weapon or even a big creature from the Warcry 10 he's just put out, then he just immediately gets the game back.
Yep. This Ruin prevents the 2 health gain off of Sword of Ikaria, which is pretty relevant. Ikaria still gets to block this turn, but Deep Forge Plate for the win. That is exact lethal.
Yep, so pretty good draw from Unearthly there. Will put him into top 8. So we will have Rakano. Fortunately, Marius is done after a pretty quick game, thanks to at the hands of Rakano.
Yeah, a lovely matchup, and from there we can see that Unearthly is going into the top 8. So really strong play from Unearthly, just a really well put together deck. Managed to secure that first game and then didn't have any major issues with the sideboards from Marius. So it seems like it's gone particularly well, and I think that Unearthly is definitely deserving of a spot. So we'll definitely see some Mercano in the top 8 tomorrow.
Yep, Unearthly getting rewarded for building one of the decks that punishes all these slow decks. He ran into a bunch of them. He ran them over. I imagine he had a lot of games or a lot of matches like that. What he just had where he just runs people over and it's not particularly close. Having decks with free win equity, like that you just have draws that you just run people over, are very useful. Decks like Combre and similar things like that, slower decks, don't really have a nut draw, don't really get free wins from curving out. So they like are more consistent, have a higher power level, but doesn't usually work out that way. We actually have a backup match for you guys between Iliac and Catalyst. As we tune in, we see Catalyst has a pretty good board. This is currently game 1, so we will be seeing more games from these players. But we have what looks like a lethal tech and probably going to demand the trade of this Champion of Chaos, or Cunning rather. Sorry.
Leave one of these owls back, and he's strongly considering it just because if the crackback is too much, then he's out of this game. But I think that pushing for lethal is really the correct choice here. And I don't know, it's going to be pretty tough either way.
Yeah, so he gets to attack for lethal, force the trade on the Champion of Cunning, then vanquish, play Mystic Ascendant, and be pretty insulated from a crackback.
Yeah, it looks like he should be okay as long as Ilya does not draw into a power. This is the advantage of playing games with Unearthly's Rakano decks. We get to see multiple different games in the series.
I also like how Iliac apparently got 2 Combre dual lands from both Felon Bloodcaster activations because he has 2 time and 2 justice influence.
Is forced to concede, unfortunately. But yeah, it looks like that didn't end up very good for him, and certainly pulling the wrong cards off of the Felon Bloodcasters didn't help.
But that is only game 1. Iliac will have a chance to come back. We will move to sideboards for both players. We have seen both of these decks sideboard earlier. The Iliac seen a lot of big Combre. This Felonscar deck is kind of built to beat big Combre. You saw that the end of that game was very close. Like, he almost did turn the corner with Champion of Chaos or Cunning because it's really good in that matchup. So we'll see what he wants to bring to bear in the sideboard.
Felonscar mid-range is a pretty tough deck to beat, and altogether it might end up doing pretty well in the sides. But from here, we're going to see like a really interesting setup against 2 fairly slow decks. I think the Champion of Cunning can be a really crucial card in this matchup, but we'll see how well it goes.
Yeah, of course it gets blocked by Sandstorm Titan. It can get gang blocked by Parliament tokens, but in situations where it gets to go uncontested and just pump up all your Bloodcasters and make those threats, it's so powerful. It's such a good end game finisher. It's just exceptionally good at that. We'll look at the sideboard for Iliac. You can see him sideboarding on your screen, but we will look at his options. He has 3 Ruin, an Annihilate, 2 Backlash, a Feeding Time, a Rain of Frogs, 2 Steward of the Past, 2 Strain of Shadow, a Black Sky Harbinger, a Thunderstrike Dragon, and the Zendel's Gift. I'm just to see if the Zendel's Gift comes in. I'm kind of on the side of Combre, like built the way Catalyst is a little bit too fast for his Zendel's Gift,
possible.
but there's certainly arguments to bring it in.
The gift does end up coming in along with 3 backlashes, so Ilya is definitely building around sort of a slower Combre list. If the other sideboard ends up turning into a more aggressive Combre style, that might end up being just too much for the Feln deck to handle. But it's really dependent. Like, it's basically just going to be a matter of who ends up with the best answer to whatever the current sideboard change is, who predicts what's going to happen better.
Yep. And Catalyst does not have the transformational sideboard we've seen of other Combre players in this tournament. He does not have the Awakened Students, does not really have other cards that help him be more proactive. So he does have Xenon Obelisks and stuff, but I don't think those are particularly useful in this particular matchup. Access to Healer's Cloak, Great Parliament, Reality Warden, Passage of Eons. Passage of Eons might not be awful. There's a lot of cards with words that matter. It is a lot of mana.
Yeah, there's a strong case to be made for Xenon Obelisk, since it prevents a lot of things from being killed by Black Sky Harbinger and other things like that. Get you above lightning storm range, can just make your units a lot harder to deal with. Also negates suffocates, which is always nice.
Yes, that's very true. There is certainly applications for it. It kind of puts Iliac in this weird mind game where, like, does he bring in Ruins or Furnace Mage or whatever? So maybe you bring it into head fake him, maybe you take it out game 3. You can do stuff like that.
Well, we have Seed of Chaos and Feeding Time in Ilya's hand. He decides to throw that back since there's not anything to play early. Feln Strangers will help him fix up for Champion of Cunning, and he'll be able to play that pretty early, possibly even on 5 on curve.
Assuming, of course, that he draws Running Power for a lot of turns in a row, because he is out.
Yep. I mean, the guarantee is 2 to 4 power. It's not guaranteed that you're going to get 3. So he does need to find one of his power seeks, islands, seek power, any sort of actual power that he can play, something along those lines to actually get set up. And he needs to draw several of them in a row.
So he just draws this right there. So I guess the stranger beats are coming. These 2/2s are going to have to get some jobs done. And it's probably not. They're going to get some damage in. They're going to have to attack again, but then Sandstorm Titan is going to come down and help tell them to pump the brakes. Although Iliac does have the Annihilate.
Yeah, like, we've seen this deck before. It's one of the brew lists, but we're running into the same problem that we saw last time, which is that it doesn't seem to have enough fire to necessarily pull into the power that it needs with the 33 power sources, I believe, that it has.
Yeah, so you can count things like Quarry towards the mana base. Like 4 Quarries is worth about 1 source, roughly. Yep. But that only counts if you consistently get red on 2 to cast it. So there is a mitigating factor.
There aren't that many sources of red in the deck overall. Like, there's a few. There's probably enough, certainly, but I'm not sure that you can count Quarry towards your overall power base if you're looking to not get screwed in these particular circumstances.
Yeah, and we will see the Catalyst elected to not run out their Sandstorm Titan, wanted to just leave Protect up. No reason to let it die against a deck with so much removal for the Titan. And we will see them rewarded here. It will negate this Annihilate. And Titan will do a bunch of blocking.
Yeah, like this I do like this continued aggression from Feln Strangers. Catalyst already at 16 makes this pretty tricky. Like, if he can keep that Sandstorm Titan alive and continue to build out his board, I think this is sort of the turning point where Ilya's lack of power is really going to start becoming a problem.
Yeah, Ilya needs, like, he actually has, like, the tools to stabilize with the Death Strike and the Champion of Chaos and, like, Backlash. He just doesn't have the mana to get all of it out in time, potentially. He does have a little bit of life to play with. This Titan is only about a 4-turn clock, probably. But now this Mystic Descendant's coming down, the Seraph is in play, threatening to ult next turn. He has so much he needs to deal with and not enough mana to do it.
Yeah, every time you ignore one of these big threats on the board, another one comes down and it becomes that much harder to deal with. If Ilya had managed to find a Shadow, he could play Champion of Cunning and create some really profitable blocks, but he didn't manage to pick it up, so it's going to be pretty tricky from here on out.
Catalyst has the choice between the ulting Seraph or playing Great Parliament. We'll see what they elect for. They do choose Seraph. What does it get? What does it get? I guess I was wrong.
Yeah, good old Awakened.
Yeah, he is playing Awakened Student.
There are Awakened Students in this deck after all, yeah. So we see Backlash available, Quarries. He's just looking for that Shadow. He hasn't found it yet, but the Thunderstrike Dragons should be a pretty reasonable play.
If he can live that long to cast them, he's under a huge amount of pressure.
He's got a reasonable amount of chump blocks at the least. Thunderstrike Dragon should hold. Yeah, you kind of want to leave one Feln Stranger up so that you can deal with the 6/6 Awakened Student, but he's going to have to block.
Yeah, because these two aren't lethal. Like the 5-power creatures aren't lethal, like 2 of them together, but the 6-power is.
Yeah, it's
Although Flight Student has Sandstorm Titan telling Flight Student he doesn't have text. Never mind, I thought that was a lot better Seraphic than it was.
right. That's a pretty crushing blow. I think Ilya is probably not going to be able to succeed here. So we'll see him knocked down, and from there, I believe that is the last of our games.
Yeah, that is Iliak out of the tournament, unfortunately. Catalyst moving on to top 8. So, yeah, good show by all the players there. It's cool to see. I guess we have like several big Combrade decks. We did see that it was the biggest share of the metagame earlier when we looked at the breakdown, so had probably the better chance to get in, but we also saw things like Unearthly's Vercano Plate deck also got there, and some other aggressive decks like Stone Scar Burn, I think, did well. I don't know if it got top 8, but we actually do have another backup match we're going to try and queue up for you here in a moment while we set that up. I think that matchup, it should be a lot closer. It's just that Felnscar really needs a lot of mana to do what it needs to do, and you can't really stumble. And Combrade's not going to put a bunch of pressure on you, but when you do nothing, the 5/6 is going to get there.
Yeah, I'm feeling a lot more cooled on Quarry in particular in that deck. We've seen a lot of games where Quarry has just been kind of bad, or like it hasn't allowed them to fix. It's been just sort of awkward and weird and a little bit difficult to play on 2 in these 3-color decks. It still works very well in certain Stonescar archetypes, but we're certainly seeing like some of its weaknesses in the matchups that we've seen today.
I'm kind of down on just splashing red in general. I think you just make a streamlined Feln control deck. I don't know if the red is really giving you that much of a payoff. It's essentially just for Quarry, Saturate Maiden, and Torch. Torch probably being the best among those cards. And I'm not convinced that that is worth the obvious cost you're paying in the mana base.
Yeah, I am in particular, like, I've never been a particular fan of Statuary Maiden in these tournament settings. I started swapping them for Stewards very, very early on. Yeah, it's really interesting how well it's turned out. Like, it seems like the Quarry in particular is just being a bit of an issue, and you've got those 3-color decks that are just awkward and difficult.
Yep. And we do have our backup match between Thundershot and Skij. Thundershot is on his Time Justice Primal mid-range deck, and Skij is on Big Combrade, currently with a pretty reasonable board, but behind on mana, so these Seraphs are not particularly close to ulting.
Yep, we have Sandstorm Titans coming down, Stand Together is available, so if there is any sort of harsh rule from Skij, then that could be pretty rough, but like, it's really hard to say if Skij is in a position where he's actually going to be in trouble.
Yeah, he needs to hit power. If he does hit power, he can start snowballing his Seraphs, and the Seraphs can overwhelm the board. But he's pretty far away from that. He needs at least 2 more turns. That's if he has 2 more power at all. So we'll see these other cards.
This Temple Scribe actually makes a difference. Thundershot really wants to be able to attack with his Sandstorm Titans, but an attack with a Sandstorm Titan just trades with a Sandstorm Titan and a Temple Scribe, which means that the only thing that dies is Temple Scribe in this situation. Whereas otherwise, if he wanted to attack with these, he'd be able to pick up like a Seraph, which, strangely enough, Skij
I do like this block plays around Stand Together, which Thundershot could have previously telegraphed on a pause at end of turn earlier in the game, or Skij could just have the reads. But yeah, this block is much, much better against the Stand Together, which Thundershot had. He only needs, you can actually block, like, be more liberal with the Seraphs because you only need one of them. Having multiples doesn't really matter. And we do see Find the Way from Skij.
I do agree. Yeah. It's a very good
block.
So
Find the Way from Skij is going to have him get to 8 at least the turn after next turn because the lands come into play depleted. But he's getting there. He's under pressure, but he's getting there.
Yeah, he needs to find a way to deal with Sandstorm Titan is what he needs to find a way for. But beyond that, like, I think that as long as he can hold out here, he has the advantage in value, and he might even force Thundershot to harsh roll his own Stand Together board.
Okay, here we go.
Mystic Ascendant goes all the way. I do not understand why Thundershot didn't attack there.
I also was confused by that. Kind of glossed over that, but I'm not sure what punishes him for attacking. There was something in his head he was thinking about, though. But now, Skij, he got to play the Mystic Ascendant, got to draw a card. I assume an attack is coming in now, but now the Seraphs get to start activating, And there actually is no attack. And this is the no attacks are giving Skij so much breathing room to activate these
Yeah,
Seraphs.
yeah. Skij does have a block here, which is both Seraphs and a 1/1, but I don't know. It's just not necessarily bad for Thundershot to kill one of these Seraphs and try and find an answer to the other one. I think that in general, pressuring it down is a pretty good idea. We'll see how well it goes.
Interesting. We do see a Sandstorm Titan that was apparently slowed earlier in the game. Harsh rolls, I'm unsure. Like, you're behind, and yeah, if you get ahead later, the harsh rolls are matter. But I think you need to just get phase 1 done of getting ahead. And I think that maybe just take the Titans, but maybe the Titan doesn't matter. Maybe the Titan's worse than a Seraph activation.
It's tough. I think now he's just playing defensively, and if he can find his own harsh rolls, he'll be okay. But he still has to deal with the 8-cost Sandstorm Titan coming down after harsh rolls. So Thundershot's got a ways to go to crawl out of this game.
Yeah, and actually, like, kind of criticize it, but I think that the not attacking with the Sandstorm Titan was right, because he would only kill one Seraph, the other Seraph would remain, he would lose his Titan, he would be behind on board, and assuming, like, if he draws nothing, he's going to be in a bad spot either way.
Yeah, now that he's been drawing, like, nothing for several turns, it makes sense that he still has the Sandstorm Titan. But
yeah, at least this way, he can still block all this stuff and not, like, give himself more time to draw out of it.
If Thundershot has Permafrosts in his deck, I think attacking with the Sandstorm Titan is correct, because you can pull a Permafrost and get rid of the Seraph. But, like, at this point, the Seraphs are just gonna go off. So what he really needs is Crystallize or Harsh Roll.
And there's Crystallize. The newly made 8/8 Throne Warden does kind of throw a wrench in this, but that would have been good last turn.
Like, he almost wants to hold on to the Crystallize for next turn, take 8 from the Throne Warden, and then Crystallize for damage.
Yeah, I think that's the line. You hope he attacks with the Throne Warden.
The big disadvantage here is that stunning the Seraphs does disable their ability, but if he doesn't Crystallize this turn, he gets yet another Seraph activation. And it's Rilgon!
A new hit!
Is Rilgon even tournament legal at this point? I don't know. I think
it is now.
Cheating.
That's so good. So yeah, welcome Rilgon to the Eternal Tournament Series a week early.
Well, Rilgon's a ninja. He snuck in there.
Yeah, now you get to Crystallize. You can attack. So this is 9, and then it's not a 2-turn clock over 2 turns, but it's damage.
All right, I want to see a spell, and I want to see Rilgon finish this off. Skij is pushing a decent amount. That 8/8, of course, is a problem. I don't know. Oh, Thundershot is just sort of threatening to kill the Throne Warden with a fake Scorpion Wasp here.
See, interesting that
I like this use of the
combo. Yeah, because all of your things are giant, they don't need more health.
All right.
What is Thundershot? Another Crystallize?
Action here.
Second Crystallize?
Permafrost, it's not too bad. He does get to attack with the 6/7, and then it's actually a profitable attack. He gets something out of it. He can still pull into a harsh rule here. If Skij doesn't have the right answers, then this could be a bit of a difficult setup.
Yeah, I just want to see, like, a Find the Way or something cast to give Rilgon double damage.
I think that's definitely going to happen. Skij's going to have some sort of spells here. Let's see what spells end up happening. He might just be holding on to a handful of power.
It's also possible. But he still has these Seraphs. He has a lot of business.
There's Seek Power for double damage. There you go. Now he's an 8/8. That's too much. So is that lethal because of Rilgon? I guess is the question. I think it's very close to lethal right now.
Block Rilgon and Predatory Carnosaur 6, 10, 12, 14. It is exactly lethal. Oh, wait, no, it's not. Yeah, it is. It's exactly lethal if you target everything.
I don't think the double damage matters because the next highest attack is also 4, but he's just swinging with Rilgon. Has he not noticed that he has full lethal?
I mean, it's not like trivial math, I guess, but I mean, let me check. Maybe I did it wrong. So it's 6.
You could also run into trouble here.
No, yeah, that's exactly lethal.
Yep, there we go. He sees it. He goes for it. There's the threat of the Scorpion Wasp, but assumably you don't care too much about that. So, yep, has to block the Rilgon, and that is just enough.
Yep. So, and I do believe that was Is this game 3?
No, it's 17. Yeah. Okay. I believe that is game 3. Regardless, I think Thundershot may have lost the game before. So, looks like.
Yes, we see Thundershot complaining. No promos, Invitational. I would like the man to recount.
I think we're going to allow it. I won't say for certain, but I'm guessing that one's totally legitimate.
Yeah.
All right, Ninja.
So SkiJ will be moving on to our top 8. Unfortunately, Thundershot knocked out just at the end. Good performance by him, though. Good showing to not only get to the Invitational, but get to almost top 8, just one round short. It's a long distance to go. Nothing to be ashamed of there.
Just a fine game to end out the day on. I'm looking forward to the top 8, where I'm sure we'll see a lot more crazy, delightful, fun things.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see more Railguns.
I wouldn't count on it.
What is that, like a 1 in 120?
Yeah, Railgun's also the only promo card that you can hit off of Seraph, right?
No,
like,
you can
there's
get
the other.
You can get with Azendel. Azendel you can also hit.
Oh, is Azendel yellow? Azendel's yellow, right? Yeah, that's right.
Get a big old O10.
Okay, well, so let's not look for Railgun. Let's look for an Azendel off of a Seraph. That should be fun.
Yeah, we gotta get both.
Exactly.
All right, well,
sneak them both in.
I believe that's going to do it for our coverage today. We do have a couple messages by our tournament organizer, Rick Henner, so I will throw it over to him.
Been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Truedawn. And unfortunately, we have to disqualify SkiJ for having a illegal card. No, of course, I'm kidding. It was a crazy final match. It was a great match to end the day on. And I can confirm, I saw last night a Zindel off of a premium Seraph. A Zindel's premium looks pretty cool. But anyway, I would like to congratulate all of our players that have so far made top 8. In the winners bracket for day 2, we will start with Angry Chicken and Love Up and Sarius and Haidar as our first 2 matches of the day. And in losers bracket, we have Unearthly versus the SkiJ and Catalyst versus Paradox. It's the even though a lot of the players in the tournament are still Cambrai, we still do have some interesting decks in the event. We do still have a Burn Queen deck, 2 Rakano decks even. But I would like to thank every one of our players who came out today. Even the players that went out in tied for last are still great players, even for being invited. Season 3 was a long season. We had new cards, we had patches. Everyone here has definitely shown that they are a great Eternal player. Adapted to the meta very well. I think every deck that was brought today was a very strong deck. But of course, this is a tournament. Some players have to leave. And again, even if you leave early, you're still a great player. And I'd also like to thank all of our viewers. If it wasn't for all of you, we couldn't be doing this. Putting this show on every week is a blast. And especially for invitationals like this, seeing all this high quality Eternal action, even better. I'd like to give a special shout out to aReNGee, the founder of aReNGee Eternal. And I'd also like to thank Miller Tool, our producer. Without him, we literally could not do this, even if there was a few hiccups today. And I'd also like to thank our graphics and co-contributors, specifically EX Kirby for our fancy new invitational background. He also sent us a new video to show, the EX Kirby Draft Strategy Guide that we showed early in the day. I'd also like to thank the players that sent us deck texts. Red World, Unearthly, Paradox, and Shed all sent us deck texts. I think we only got to show 3 of them today, but we will be showing all of them tomorrow in between rounds, as pre-show content, as long as things go according to plan. And finally, a thanks to our casters, LocoPojo, and Truedawn. Truedawn, would you like to tell us about your stream?
Oh, sure. So my name is Frank Moon. You guys know me here as Truedawn. My Twitch stream is Twitch TV / Truedawn FM. I stream every weekday from 8 a.m. Eastern until around 2 o'clock. We just stream Eternal mainly. I've been dabbling a bit in Gwent and other games. I'm probably also going to be playing a bit of Hearthstone Gasp when the new expansion comes out. So we'll be playing around with a bunch of various card games, mainly Eternal, but I like branching out into other stuff as well. What about you, LocoPojo?
Oh, my name is LocoPojo. I think, yeah, people might know me. I have been streaming weekly on Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. PST with Wednesdays off. We also sometimes stream Sunday Deck Doctor streams where we look at people's decks and talk about them and play them out and just sort of do sort of educational stuff. I also play other games, but for the most part, it's pretty much all Eternal content. So if you want to see that, you can head over to Twitch TV / LocoPojo.
All right. Thanks once again to everyone for watching, and thanks once again to all our players for playing. Have a good night, and see you tomorrow at approximately 11:30 Eastern time for our pre-show coverage. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.